Hello everyone again. Great that you are joining the PM Guild weekly. It's actually number 24 already of the guild. I was just amazed today that this guild is already more than half a year old or half a year old. I'm super grateful that everyone made it to this session. If you are able to open the meeting agenda, then you will see that there is actually quite a few items. And I wanted to first quickly align on priority in case we don't make it. We have update on the vibes check. I think everyone remembers that we did this like early in the season, and just wanted to discuss the results and the activities that result from this. Then update on talent education workstream, what's happening, a discussion on role holder election process, and then two wrap-ups of the stuff that I have been posting as threads in the general channel on how we use our budget and on the proposal for more education content. I just want to get a shout out there so everyone knows about this in case you haven't seen it. Currently, the agenda is structured like from top to bottom, like I just read it out. So this means that the proposal for more education content, proposal for using our budget to pay guild internal activities are the last ones. In case you are super interested in this and want to upvote this, just let me know now, else we're just going to go from top to bottom.
I kind of want to bump that. I kind of want to bump the role holder election because it directly affects the guild, and it's kind of like a timely matter. Same with the budget. I feel like the budget has to go out today. Should probably be the first thing we talk about.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's do that. I can comment to that. All right, cool. Then just quickly, news bites reiterating on season transition process. There are three main items that you need to keep in mind, and I think about one of those we will also discuss in a second. First one, today, season 6 budget form proposal is due. The draft is completed, final draft. We discussed it earlier in the Brain Accelerator session when it comes to the goals for season 6. And at least from this group, the current draft is good to be shipped today. So everyone has a little bit of time still after this meeting to read through the proposal and still if you have comments, then add them quickly so I can then hand in the proposal today or maybe tomorrow, a little bit late, but I understand this is not a problem, giving us enough time to make sure everyone had a chance to read it.
Hey, Renee.
Yes.
Question on the budget. I didn't get a chance to review it since we made changes this morning. How much of the budget is like available after these kind of like weekly things that we're committing to?
I actually didn't do the math so far, but we can do it just on the fly in a second once we agreed on the budget. It's a very fair question. I guess we will be able to answer that in a moment. But good point.
Yeah, just the concern I have is I want to make sure that we have enough budget to execute on things like education platform and that kind of stuff, and have coordinate and like open bounties that we can use in the next season to help incentivize new contributors.
Yeah, let's look at that in a second. I'm just making a note. I think I already have a rough idea if I calculate that real quick in my head. Okay, coming back to the season transition process, season 5 coordinate round for active guild members. This is due to happen then next week. I'm going to set up everything respectively. There has been a active member snapshot on the 10th of October, just to be able to hand in the active member count for the proposal on the 14th. If everyone is happy with that, then I would also keep it that way. If we want to make this super clean, then we can also do an additional active member snapshot on Monday before the week of the coordinate round starts. Just a quick vibes check if you have a preference for either of them.
You said we took active members last week?
Yeah, exactly, at the 10th. So
Yeah, I don't think
actually
there's any
4
need
days
to do
ago.
it. Yeah, I don't think there's
Yeah,
a need to do another one on Monday.
yeah, I guess so too. Okay.
One
Cool.
thing about active members, we talk about doing um like how it's like one task in the last
Yeah.
12 weeks.
Yes. Well,
How are we tracking the tasks for the last 12 weeks? Because I know like it's
yeah.
specifically around the 12-week timeline because Notion doesn't show that stuff. So what I had been doing was kind of archiving tasks every X amount of weeks,
Um,
but I don't know if that's happening.
I guess as far as I remember, and I hope you don't have a different memory, the two criteria that we defined was having done 2 tasks in this season and having joined 50% of the last 6 weeks sessions. Now on the tasks, I was just simply going for the Kanban board for this season because that's pretty much reflecting everything. Or do we have? Do I oversimplify something there? You know what I mean? We archived the last season Kanban board, so the current Kanban board should be like the right reference for that.
Fair enough. But if we do active members 1 month into next season, for instance, for whatever reason, maybe we don't need to do that. But if we do that, then we won't be able to see like pretty much very few people will be able to be active members based upon that calculation because the previous season was wiped out.
Yeah. I struggled with this 2 links, and it was kind of what Sprinkles and I were banging our heads against with the onboarding flow, because it's almost like you hit the reset button. According to that, I wouldn't be an active member at the beginning of the next season, because we kind of start at 0 and then build up and earn it. Or you wouldn't be able to earn it through completing tasks mid-season either, because we're not looking at the Kanban board until the very end. So then when we got into that mid-season elections, we kind of had to do a calculation so we knew who was an active member and eligible to apply.
I think one way we could do it is through the Notion comments, just like write down when you did the thing, like when you moved it into completed. And it's not perfect, but it's one way for us to like validate. Because then so I guess like, you know what, this is probably a little bit too micro for this discussion. But I do think that like it should be a continual measurement rather than like kind of a discrete measurement. Like it should be a measurement that we can take at any time. That's why it was like originally when I wrote it down, it was like the 12-week thing rather than the.
So I think I get both of your points, and I was just now thinking whether what is really the things that we would use active membership for, apart from coordinate rounds. And what came to my mind is like polls. So exerting voting right or governance power in the guild is currently dependent on active members, at least when it comes to the role holders election. And I think we will also resort to this definition for other like important decisions in the guild. So I completely share your view that we should be able to snapshot this at any given time, and hence, at least as long as we don't review the definition of active guild members, we need to find a proper way to measure this. My proposal would be Jay Fanny is here and he currently holds the task of like whenever we need it to recalculate the active member count. And maybe if Jay Fanny, if you would like to propose a solution, I mean, Lynx has already proposed one, namely we take the date of the task when it's completed. Lynx, do we you propose that we just put it into the header, or
We can put it in the header, or we can put it in the in just like a comment too. I'm not sure if the comments record the date. I don't think that they do.
yeah, maybe we can even put the date in one of the properties. Can't you just add additional date properties?
Yeah, you can. You can have like you can have a date property that's like a completed date, and it would show. That's a good way to do it too.
So a completed date property on the Notion board to just show that you've completed a task on the Kanban board.
And at what date? Exactly, and at what date? So we can properly measure whether you did a task for PM Guild in the last 12 weeks on a recurring basis. So then it's possible to, when you look at the active guild members, to just look at the 12 weeks back from that property. Yeah, cool. Okay. I'm going to document that in a second. Let's see where this fits in. Finish. Okay, you don't have to wait until I've documented this. But then just continuing, the third part of the season transition process is the season 6 role holder election process. So technically speaking, it is planned for the first week of the season, but I believe Lynx had a interesting point earlier in this session, and Lynx, maybe if you want to make that point just again, then this gives me time to define document what we just agreed on the active guild members. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So I guess my issue with doing role holder elections at the beginning of the season or at the end of the season is that essentially the previous role holder is creating this budget, setting a vision, setting a strategy, and then it's possible that they will get voted out or they just step down. And then there's this new person who is kind of acting on this old person's vision. Not I don't want to say old person, but essentially like someone sets a vision and then someone else is supposed to execute on it. And I feel like that's just like kind of like unDAO like. I think it would be interesting if you were to set the vision and then execute on it. So my proposal was maybe we can move role holder elections for guild coordinator, talent coordinator, and education workstream to mid-season next season. And that would allow the end of the season for the new role holders to kind of decide how they wanted to do things and write their form proposal and kind of like plan how they wanted to do things, maybe get started on things, and then in the beginning of the season, kind of like really execute on it with the new funding, all this kind of stuff. There's this kind of like budget which we use to kind of plan. So if we move role holder elections to mid-season, then these new role holders can set a vision, get the funding they need to do that vision, set that budget based upon that vision, and then execute upon it before the next election.
I think this is a really fair point. And Lynx, thinking a little bit longer about the idea that you had, I'm wondering, does it somehow make sense that we that even if we do the role holder election sometime mid-season or even like 70-80% into the season, but then definitely before the goals are defined, that still you have to hold the role throughout the whole coming season, because else if we do like the handover of the power like mid-season, and then you hold it pretty much mid-season to mid-season, then the cadence of the goals is off by the cadence of you being the role holder, which then like reduces the problem that you initially had to just half the season, but it's still persistent, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And I was thinking about what you said a little bit, like, oh, maybe you can just finish, like maybe we can have the role holder election mid-season, but then they take on that they take on the roles at the beginning of next season. So there's kind of like a transition. I guess that could be okay too. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure. Uh I think either is an improvement over what we're doing now.
You are not sure whether that is an improvement?
I said I think either of them,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
whether or not they take that responsibility and authority up mid-season or at the beginning
Yeah.
of next season, I think either is an improvement over what we do now.
Yeah. Okay, great. Are there other views?
I agree with that, and I think Links just put some words behind maybe what I was feeling around. Coming, I took over from the old the old guy last season, so I was kind of trying to get up the learning curve, put together my plan, but there already was a proposal, so I was a bit trying to make it my own, but a bit trying to execute on what we had created, and I really was putting forward my plan to try to help the guild execute on what was in the proposal or what had come and what was in our plan on a page, and then. So now we're heading into the end of the season, and I'm part of crafting next season. But the person, if I wasn't to get reelected or I was decided to step down, someone's just taking that over. So it is missing like some. I haven't quite put my finger on it, but that definitely articulated something that was in my head.
Basically, you're taking up a bunch of responsibility without the corresponding authority.
Nailed it.
Yes, that's actually exactly how I feel also, and coming into this role halfway through the season, that is exactly what is on my plate right now. So I tend to agree with this also.
So what I would like to propose is to post a poll that basically gives the current role holders half more season, and we do elections mid-season next season. And role holders can step down if they want at any time, and we can have special elections and all that kind of stuff. But I wondered, is that an appropriate course of action for the guild to vote on this kind of idea?
I would second that.
But so just to understand, the consequence would be that Sprinkles and GCal and me, we define the goals for next season, but then mid-season there will be an election where we potentially are not being elected, and then the other person at least has to only quote-unquote live with half a season fulfilling
maybe you
the
can
goals.
Maybe we can do the option that you said where you finish out the seasons, but these new role holders essentially become like your apprentices for 6 weeks until the new season. They're the ones who are creating the budget. They're the ones who are like setting a vision. And then the next season, they take that on.
I'm wondering if there is another way that, at least for the current situation, solves or serves the same need, namely that we just ask the guild whether the 3 current role holders could be, I don't know if approved is the right English term, but I think you will get what I mean, could be approved for the next season. So then just we know that the people who now define the goals have also the means to follow through on these goals for the next season, and that buys us a little bit more time to firm up the governance on the issues that Links you brought up. that an option too?
Yeah, we could have a lazy governance election for all of our role holders, but I mean, just as a quick temp check, was there anyone who was planning on running for a role like talent coordinator, guild coordinator, or education coordinator? Is there anyone that was planning on running?
Yeah.
GM Latsan, you were planning on running?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should just have the election in that case, Renee, like
Yeah.
and then have the next one earlier, but allow role holders to continue on.
Yeah, I think that might.
Latsan,
Sorry,
it's really
Latsan.
hard to hear you.
It's actually not possible to hear you, to be honest.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I said probably we should ask if some holders are ready to drop their role first, and so we should know probably if they want to resign themselves and go again. Then probably those that want to drop the role, then we know the open space. But I prefer the educational coordinator.
So that means we could do lazy governance or lazy election on the talent work stream lead, but on the education work stream lead, we would have to do a voting.
Yeah, if the person is not actually ready to drop it, it's fine because there must be continuity in what we are doing. So if someone is maybe you need to vote somebody out and vote another person in, there might not be continuity if the person does not understand what the former person is doing before. So I believe in there should be continuity. So if the person is willing to drop, yeah, then that's fine.
I guess I'm not really sure if I understand completely, because I guess Sprinkles is probably not eager to drop her just now assumed role
No.
in 2 weeks.
My question, Renee, have on terms as opposed to seasons, is that
Yes.
similar to, does Grant? I don't know if Grant's committee does terms.
Yeah. I guess we have not put like our governance sufficiently in writing as to that this is all in writing, but it has been best practice so far that we had 1 season terms, and then just role holders got re-elected at the end of the season.
So Grant's committee does have terms, but they're 2 seasons, so they're still related to seasons, right? I understand why we do the whole season thing. It's because it's our cadence of funding from the DAO is in seasons. But yeah, like if we're gonna run an election for next season, we're about to put a budget out, which kind of like lays out our vision. And it's true that we can change that, but those people who've created that's essentially their platform. And I guess if we want to have, if other people want to run, they need to state what their platform is. Right?
Another way of looking at this links is comes to my mind. The season 6 goals, technically speaking, these should not be the goals of the role holders, but this should be the goals of the guild. And I'm wondering if there really needs to be like your personal footprint or fingerprint on these goals. I mean, technically speaking, whoever is elected, these are the goals that the guild wants. And maybe we should then rather make sure that the guild as a whole community agrees and supports these goals, because then it's not so dependent on the role holders.
But it's so counterpoint. Those goals were essentially like created by the existing role holders. And like I'll give you an example that's a little bit more poignant. This morning we were looking at two ways to do education. One was to create this educational course, and a second one was to create a bunch of educational blog posts.
Yes.
If you are an education coordinator, you could have a very strong opinion on which one of those you want to do. And
Yeah, agreed.
if you come in and it's kind of like, well, you have to do the other one, it just doesn't harness the power of the
Yeah, I
DAO
agree.
in the same way, right? Like we want like purpose-driven individuals who are passionate about what they're doing to execute,
I fully
because
agree.
the hope is that the work will be better as a result, and they'll follow through. So that's why I think it is really important. I know it sounds like a subtle point, but I think it's really important for those that are doing the ideating to do the execution, because that's how you kind of bridge the gap. And for me, that's more that's hitting the DAO ethos more than someone ideates, someone else executes. I really try to avoid that kind of structure.
Yeah, so I personally, I don't feel that this is a very subtle point. I hope you can also see that, because I am very passionate about this discussion as well. And Crypto Dad, I think you wanted to say something as well, if you want.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we can put a like a long-term roadmap. I mean, each quarter, uh, based on the roadmap, could have a certain mission, but then it depends on the role holder to decide how he or she want to execute that mission. But should be there's like a clear roadmap for the guild, right? In long term. That can be proved by the whole entire community here and the group here.
We actually have this, and the forum proposal includes the strategic goals that we have defined on the plan on a page. And I think it happened exactly like you mentioned it. And I think in that case, you're making Lynx's point that the way the strategic goals are being expressed in season 6 has been defined by the role holders, and hence should be executed by them as well. So in that way, I completely agree to Lynx's point as well, and I think we also have consensus that for any given season, probably the best case would be to have the role holder election sometime mid or late season, so people can start shaping the goals for the upcoming season before they execute on their role in that coming season. And the only question is, how do we make that in season 6 happen? Is there a middle way that people feel okay with for this season? I think if I understand correctly, Lynx, your proposal was to just ask the community to extend the term, if we will, of the current role holders till mid next season. And I was
I
probably
agree with what you said. We could probably just run an election, you know, sooner. Like I guess like in the next, it's either going to be next week, which is like, or you said the first week of the next season, which I think is what, November 8th or something. I think we should run it sooner rather than later, because if there's going to be a big change, if I was a role holder, I would want to know.
So then, if we can settle for, like, let's do the election in the coming, say, 7 to 10 days to give people time to propose or throw their hat in the ring, give a few ideas as to how they would take the role in the coming season, etc., then we can have the role. I think the guardrails, luckily, the governance guardrails for the role holder election are being set, and hence it's hopefully a process that we can just follow. And then should there be someone not being re-elected, then I think we just have to revisit the goals if that's needed and live with that these goals are not the same as in the forum proposal. Is that a way that we could go?
Yeah, that could work. And I do also want to say that I know it probably sucks for the existing role holders. I don't feel like we necessarily set you up for success as we did some of the transitions in the past. So I'll just apologize for that because I do think it's frustrating to not be set up for success. But the changes that we make now could set you or others up for success. So I think that is hopefully a step in the right direction.
Good. Then thanks for bringing this up, Links. I think it is a very important point, and good that we've found a way forward. Looking at proposal for using our budget to pay guild internal activities. So in a separate thread, there were proposals to remunerate YouTube recording and weekly meets, the Twitter account management currently being done by Wiki1, so the meme of the week, definition, poll, and upping. Maybe currently it's not a meme of the week, but ideally it should be. And the weekly recap that Great has started to write, I think 2 weeks ago. If you haven't read it, then please do. I think Great, you will probably post a new one this week. And the fourth one is the accounting role that we discussed, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we said it will make sense to have someone who firms up our accounting processes in the sense of in and outflows of our multi-sig, but also a person that sets up a better payroll payout process that ideally we would be able to pay role holders and bounties on a monthly basis, and even run a monthly coordinate if we feel that that's not too much overhead for everyone. And at least for the 1, 2, 3, so YouTube recording, Twitter, and weekly recap, there is a quote out there with the YouTube recording being 1,500 bank per week, 1,000 for recording, 500 for the upload, Twitter account management, 1,000 bank per week, and the weekly recap, since Great is reviewing everything and consolidating, so everything that's being done, posted, our meetings, etc. He asks for 3,000 bank a week because it's more than 2 hours of work, and the accounting role is currently not priced. So assuming that we have 13 weeks, I'm just quickly doing the math to come back to Lynx's point as to how much is that, and do we have enough money left? So I think it's some 70-something thousand-ish bank that we would pay for the for these guild internal activities, which probably leaves us with. Hold on, let me just quickly calculate. With 140,000 bank after role holders payment and guild internal activities. Out of the 490 that we ask for in the budget. However, that's actually not correct because we're asking for 4 roles. So let me just correct my number. Yeah, I think, let's say ballparkish 200,000 bank would be the budget that we have to disperse for whatever other activities, single bounties, setup of Bankless Academy, course, etc. that we would have.
Thanks.
Sure.
I have a question I feel like I should know the answer to, but I need to ask it. So we do a end of season guild coordinate, and what's the purpose or intent behind that, and how much funding goes towards that?
So I guess in last season, what we did is just we took the budget that we had in our multi-sig, and that budget paid the role holders the retros that people did, and then whatever bank was left until our multi-sig was at 0 was being put into the coordinate. That doesn't mean that this needs to happen in season 6, but for this season, that was just what I would have followed. But fair question. If we want to do it differently, then we can do it differently. But I don't think your question necessarily meant we should do it differently. You just was just information.
Yeah, definitely information, and it feels. I like the way that we're headed, where having some defined value around the value or work that you're doing in the guild that we need. So I didn't know if coordinate at one point was kind of the umbrella for that, and now this season we're starting to feel our way into actually defining value around that and paying for it. Whether I don't know if we're going to bounty it all out or if we're going to do it a different way. So I just didn't know like if we're headed towards that. Like if we did want to stand up a Medium page and have thought leadership articles written, though, are those the kinds of things that we want to have the ability to bounty out versus have covered in the umbrella of a coordinate at the end of the season?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
I agree with you. Yeah, I guess I just want to say that I agree with you, GCal, that like I think your view of the events is correct. Like we had been using coordinate just because we had no understanding of what value was, but the further we go, the more I think we can reduce the amount that we put into coordinate. I still do think that there are things that are uncompensated and maybe unbountyable even. Like someone creates a poll, you don't necessarily want to bounty every poll that gets created or whatever. You don't want to turn everything into a transaction. And I think that that's what coordinate is for. It's kind of like more for this like uncompensated task. But I do think that it could be reduced in favor of things that you're saying, like writing articles or reaching out to other guilds and that kind of thing.
That's super helpful because I think it helps solve for one of the things we heard in the engagement survey too, was like understanding how to contribute. So the more we can define that, the more we can define a value around it, people will feel equipped to and able to sign up for it. And I think it reduces some of that ambiguity layer around, am I doing enough to make something in the coordinate or not?
Fair point. Okay. Good. So that were the points, like mainly on this proposal to use our budget to pay guild internal activities. Consequences from this are that I will put out polls for each of these guild internal activities when it comes to the compensation, and the guild will just have to vote on whether they feel that this activity should be paid that amount, and in case vote goes not towards that, then we just have to see whether that means that we need to lower the amount or we need to review the activity at all. That means I need to set out polls for this. And the same goes for the role holder selection process. I will just call out over the weekend to everyone who is interested in applying for a role to throw their hat in the ring. If you are part of this call and you think you already know you want to throw your hat in the ring, then you can of course do that as already. Okay, great stuff. We have 15 minutes. So we have left the whole block on proposal for more education content. So the two proposals, how to incentivize people to put out more education content, or we could look into the vibes check update, or we could ask GCal and Sprinkles to give us an update on the two work streams. Any preferences?
I don't mind starting with education, if that's okay.
Sure.
So
And
right
let's
now, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, please go ahead.
No, it's all good.
Okay. So we are really just trying to build out a database of education materials, and looking for input, for materials still. I know that we have been, and really, unfortunately, it hasn't. So I guess, due to my coming in at mid-season, not much work has been done on it. Which is too bad. But like you said, it was someone else's vision and didn't know really how to go about doing it. And but going forward, I think it's just the process. And so what we're looking for right now is education materials, content, anything anyone thinks is relevant to educate project management for Web3, or project managers for Web3. That's all I really have right now.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. And I want to support that. Shout out if you have anything on education content already that you can help us add to the database, then that would be amazing. Else, of course, we will look after the right incentivization mechanisms to improve on that. GCal, do you want to also add something for talent? And happened this week? Anything that was shipped? GCal has dropped, it seems. All right. Then let's go to the vibes check. This is important for me because a few of you have been working on creating the vibes check and also on interpreting the vibes check and interpretation. And for me, it's super important that we get the results out there, since it has been quite a while since we did this. And I want to just try and go through the themes that we identified in the vibes check, so a very condensated version, and then on the proposed activities. And if you want to follow what I'm saying, so you don't have to listen and get distracted. So I think I have been talking to myself.
No, Renee.
I could hear you.
Because Discord was saying the connection to the chat has been disconnected. So anyway, I'm posting the respective Notion item where we documented the results, the condensed results, and the proposed activities. So I'm going to open this now with screen share and go through this, but if you can't see my screen or anything, then please open it on for yourself. Seems to be tackled, so this is what the team has extracted. Better onboarding. I think that's clear. So of course, always when you want me to say more than what I'm going to say, then tell me this is confusing to me. What does it mean? Better onboarding, I think, makes sense. Time of the weekly meet and better meeting minutes. This one, it was not defined what better meeting minutes means, so we have to just take is it as it is here and interpret it. More tasks for members. New members want micro tasks to work on. Overall, there's a tendency that members want someone to define the tasks that need to be worked on. There is a need that the tasks are being put on the Kanban board and then you can just pick them up. Then for improved governance, also it was not clearly defined what that means, but it was a theme that was mentioned a few times. And unclear fit between guild's activities and customers of the guild. So who are the customers of the guild and what are we doing? Product market fit, if we will, when we talk in product terms. And the proposed activities are here. I'm going to try and condense a little bit what's written here because else you're just going to listen to me reading and you can read that on your own. First one, I think better onboarding. This has been tackled by the talent work stream so far and is still tackled. So I think that's a no-brainer. Time of the weekly meet and better meeting minutes. I have been trying to find a consensus to move the time of the weekly meet to another time, but it seems that there is no consensus for another time of the weekly meet, and like you all make it. I think that was a very fair point from Links a few weeks ago. So we still record a session on YouTube. Please listen to it in case you don't have time. And apart from that, we have the talent workstream meet, and I'm not sure if maybe next season the education workstream will also set up a new meet. And ideally, hopefully, we will see also more education sessions in next season. So apart from the weekly meet, really, we should be able to offer everyone meetings that you can contribute and participate in the sessions. And still, it should be your time zone. I think the other meetings, since they have a smaller like attendance group, maybe they're a little bit more flexible when it comes to timing. When it comes to meeting minutes, I actually didn't document that here for whatever reason, but so at least for me, it's quite difficult to moderate a session and still document everything in detail in the minutes. I always try to set up an agenda and give like the important points to each agenda point up front, so I don't have to minute too much. I have seen other guilds where there is the person that moderates the session is not minuting the session, but someone else is minuting. Personally, I'm always thinking, since we are recording this stuff on YouTube, there is not too much need on additional detailed meeting minutes, but I was wondering if there are views on this.
It looks to have a note taker, Renee?
Yeah, exactly.
Or
We
type
need
Notion
more detailed
administrator.
meeting minutes. Yeah, just do you think that the YouTube, maybe I need to specify my question, sorry. Do you think that the YouTube recording is sufficient as a detailed minute? And if the like big points to each agenda point are in the meeting minutes in Notion, then that's sufficient? Or do you feel there should be more detailed meeting minutes in Notion? Then probably I would suggest to have someone writing the minutes. At least
I personally feel that the YouTube video and just the bolder important points outlined is more than sufficient. But that's my opinion. It probably helps.
I agree with you, except for one thing. I think that it is an opportunity, like meeting minutes, if they are reviewed by someone else, to teach our members how to project manage. Not every meeting goes to YouTube. So if that becomes like an opportunity for education, that's one counterpoint I might add.
That's a good point.
I agree to your point, Links, and I'm wondering, at least in other guilds, meeting minutes, taking minutes is then also remunerated, and wondering if that is something that just we can afford.
It could
I've seen it
be.
both ways.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I've seen it both ways. Go ahead.
If it's not remunerated and it ends up being like a learning opportunity, I mean, typically, let's say it's an hour of someone's time, it's 1,000 bank, so it's 13,000
Yeah.
bank. We have the ability to do it, but if there's someone who's also then going to go in and review those notes, then maybe if it's an educational opportunity, people will write meeting minutes even if they aren't remunerated. I'm not sure. Something to think about.
Would be personally, I would be okay if the guild coordinator were to review the meeting minutes, and that would be part of their compensation. I think that would still fit into that compensation scheme, and then the writing the minutes still would be probably for free. I think is something that could work, but yeah, so then my proposal would be from at least those two voices. If someone else wants to add, then please unmute yourself and say something now. Else, my takeaway is the YouTube video is important. Writing meeting minutes is an opportunity to learn for people. So I will propose for the future to ask at the beginning of the session if someone is interested in writing detailed meeting minutes, and I will for sure review them if you want to. But that's going to be a voluntary activity and not remunerated.
But it can count towards your 2 tasks to be an active member.
Ooh, you are such a smart person. Agreed. Yes. Yeah, we can do that. I think that's a fair way of remunerating the task. Good. We have 4 more minutes. This one, I guess there will be more discussion. I'm going to defer this one and put it right at the beginning of our next meeting. And these ones probably are quicker, but then my proposal is, since we actually have now only 3 minutes and I don't want to rush, I'm going to put this right at the beginning of the next meeting, so we have enough time. Okay. I'm gonna try and stop sharing my screen. This was quite a dense session. Thanks for being so active in the discussion. And yeah, I'm super happy that we clarified so many important points that help us to have a more structured and more clearer PM Guild community. This is probably not always like the fancy project management discussion part, but I really love having these discussions too, because it helps us to understand our values and how we express these values in framing our framework of the guild. So thanks again for the discussion, and thank you for being here. I appreciate every one of you, and have an amazing day and amazing weekend. Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Have a great weekend, guys.